L'chaim v'livrocha, everybody. Okay, I heard that the Rebbe told Rabbi Kaplan Olav Hasholem, when you speak to Israelis, when you went to Eretz Yisrael, don't lose your American accent. In this case, I will try not to lose my Israeli accent. Was in Yechidas by the Rebbe, was a shliach from Melbourne, Abba Pliskin. He was in the Yechidas, and the Rebbe asked him when he traveled back to Melbourne. It's a long journey, particularly in those days. There was a few stops. The Rebbe asked him if he could verbring. In every place he arrived, he should verbring. So he probably was a very clever chassid, and he took the opportunity to ask the Rebbe, how you do a verbringing? And the Rebbe responded, a verbringing, you should start with the story of a chassid, not the story of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe explained, when you tell a story about the Rebbe, so people might feel, no, this is the Rebbe, but it's nothing to do with me. It's not in my league. It's not in my capability. Therefore, when you tell a story about the chassid, everybody know the chassid. They know his Yetzer Ora. So if he could do something, so maybe I could do it as well. So I just want to share a story about the chassid that happened about 12 years ago here in Melbourne. It was Hanukkah night, here Hanukkah, it's summer, so it was like close to midnight. I'm walking down in the street, looking for customers, looking for Eden. And in one restaurant, I see someone sitting down, and he looked like Oilama Chorev Olav. He looked like very like down, very, with his eyes down. He looked very, very down. So I walk over to him, say Chag Sameach, try to speak to him, and he told me basically his story. Just a few weeks before, he lost his brother in a terror attack in Be'er Sheva, in Eretz Yisrael. And a few weeks afterwards, his brother and his father, who could not live with this tragedy, they not here with us anymore. They took their life. So he said, I decided I have to run away as far as I can, and I guess as far as you can to run away from Eretz Yisrael is to come to Australia. And I see him there completely broken. So I convinced him to come to Beit Chabad, and we got very close one to each other. It was a long journey together. It took a few weeks to get him to open up, and we started to learn Hasidus. And with the time, he got Baruch Hashem, he got much better. So one Friday night, we have a big Farbrengen in Beit Chabad after the meal. And in the middle of the Farbrengen, suddenly this guy, his name was Dovid, he started to scream at me, literally in front of everyone. And he basically says, you are the Chabad guys, you are Ganovim and Gazlonim. You are robbers. I said, what are you talking about? So he says, you guys have the most powerful thing on earth. You have the Rebbe, you have Hasidus, and he shared that he was the head of a company in Eretz Yisrael of marketing, a famous company called Abudi in the south of Eretz Yisrael. And he says, you guys, your marketing is bad. Nobody know about the Rebbe, about Hasidus, and it's Poshet Gneva that you don't share what you have with everybody else. So I look on him in the Farbrengen in front of everyone, and I said, look, you are the expert. So you know what? You please, as the expert, you tell me what to do, and I promise you I will do it. I will implement it. Okay, he said, I will think about this. He came back to me after a day, and he said, dude, I really thought about it a lot, and it's impossible to marketing the Rebbe and Chabad and Chassidus and everything. I says, what are you talking about? You scream at me in front of everyone. So now you say it's impossible? Why it's impossible? So he told me something very, very powerful. He said, I will share with you what is marketing all about. He said, marketing is basically about 1 + 1. One thing that the marketing guys realized or found out about people is that everybody in the world looking for pleasure. We know from Hasidus, Tainug is the highest, is about Rotzen, about Chabad, about Midas. Tainug, everybody looking for pleasure. But then he says there is another factor, another thing that people want. People want to get to the pleasure without working hard to get it. So he mentioned, if you think about Coca-Cola, they basically tell you, you want to feel the taste of life, don't work hard. You don't need to work hard, just drink it, etc., etc. But he says, when I started to think how to market in the Rebbe, he said it's impossible. Because when the Rebbe look on you, the Rebbe demand, as we know, Chabad, the man avoida, the Rebbe wants so much work, and nobody wants to work hard to get to this pleasure. I read from Rabbi Dovid Israel that he said that he saw it from the Alter Rebbe. I don't know the source, but he wrote that it's come from the Alter Rebbe. That the Alter Rebbe says that Moshiach that everybody looking for will never come. And the Moshiach that will come, nobody will want. So what's the pshat of that saying of the Alter Rebbe? So he explained that Moshiach that everybody we want Moshiach to do the job for us. That we will stay in our comfortable zone. Okay, maybe we'll walk a little bit here and there, but at the end of the day, he will do the work for us. Such a Mashiach, say the Alter Rebbe, will never come. As we come from Chofres Nissen, and we know that following Shabbos Farbeng and Shmini was one of Ziknei Chassidim who stood up and asked the Rebbe, you are tzaddik, a tzaddik goizer, Gdish Baruch Hu Mekayim, please decree that Mashiach will come. And the Rebbe says, I just gave it over to you, and you now try to give me new jobs. In other words, don't rely on someone to do the job for you. And the famous dollars from that following Sunday with the lady that the Rebbe says, if I'm the Rebbe, I'm saying it depends on you and you and you. So that Moshiach that everybody waiting for will never come. And the Moshiach that will come, which basically saying, if I am the Rebbe, it's the avodah is on you and you and you, this Moshiach nobody will want because it's required hard work. So Chofres Nissen Nun Aleph, 31 years ago, someone I heard on Farbrengen on Friday from Rabbi Yossi Ginsburg from Tel Aviv, he says, we all know that the Rabbi Guraya came to the Rebbe in the dollars right after the Sikha, and the Rebbe said the famous words, Loi noga, loi poga. So he says, Loi, we are now in Shnas Lamed Aleph since Chofres Nissen Nun Aleph. So in B'derech HaRemez, maybe Loi, Lamed Aleph Shonim after, hopefully will be Noga. It will be nogea to us. As we know that the Rebbe 40 years ago, Yud Aleph Shvat, Tovshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe says, don't think that to rely on me to do the job. And really, it's starting from the Alter Rebbe. Tanya decharuko vektzoro, tzadik be'emunoso yichye nat yechaye. The whole idea is that no one will do the job for you. It's something that we need to do. But the Rebbe took it in Chofres Nissen, and after, of course, Yud Aleph Kislev, Tovshin Yud Aleph, when the Rebbe says, I will meyagea you, you meyagea me, and together we'll bring Moshiach. But 40 years later, on Chofres Nissen Nun Aleph, the Rebbe basically say, we made a contract that you will make me to work hard, and I will make you to work hard, and together we'll bring Moshiach. You know what? I did my part. Ani sheli osisi. And now, we need you to do all what you can. So, in other words, the Rebbe basically telling us that in order to bring Moshiach, it needs to be something which is noga, which is nogea to us. It's important to us. In other words, as the Rebbe says, not mipnei atzivui, don't do it as a slave, as an employee that following orders. It needs to be you. It needs to be nogea to you. And obviously, the first reaction we all have to that is, oy vey, it's impossible to be Beinoni or Tzadik Tanya. You know, it sounds like impossible to be achieved. But the Rebbe says, if I'm the Rebbe, I'm saying it depends on you and you and you. That you will scream at Moshe mitan emes. But in honor to something to be nogea to us, to be noga, not loy noga, as the Rebbe says then, we need to try to understand what is noga and how we could get to that point of noga, and then we'll be a skimit and emes, and then we'll do all what we can, because when something is nogea, we do everything we could about this. We all know the famous Ayom Yom with this girl that was a slave, and the Rebbe Marash asked the Rasha ben Razo, who learned the Sugi and Gemara, how come that such a little girl says a tiny that even Abai and Rove could not figure out what basically she said. And the answer is, when something is nogea to you, you're even smarter than Abai and Rove. So the Rebbe says, Loi noga. We need to find a way how Moshiach is something which is nogea to us, and we don't do it only b'pnei atzivui, because if you do b'pnei atzivui, it's not going to work. That's not what the Rebbe looking for. The Rebbe wants us to become a partners and not anymore employed or slaves. So, just want to share something about this. The word noga is also the same letters of the word oineg, and which means that what is negea to a person, what create oineg to him, what create a pleasure to him, like the marketing guy said. We're all looking for pleasure. The problem is how we get to have the pleasure in the right place, because in the nature of our nefesh habamis and our instinct, we're looking for the pleasure in the wrong side. And it appeared to be more attractive. And our etzem neshama is covered with lots of these nefesh habamis. So the question is how we could get to the right oineg. So if you change again the letters of noga and oineg, you get the word oigen, which means in English anchor. So like a boat, when you wanted to stand in one place and not move the way with the wind, you put the anchor. In the words of Chassidus, we call it das, awareness, and iskashus, ischabus, to the zach, to what we are doing. So if the oigen of our machshava, if our awareness is tokua and mechuber to the emesdik zachen of Elokus and godliness and Moshiach, then this is our oinek, and that's what nogea to us. And then we will do all what we can to actually achieve it. But when our oigen, our das, is in the wrong place, and therefore our oineg is the pleasure is in the wrong place, and therefore nogea to us the other inyonim, not the right things, then we have the fourth word from the word noga, which is a nega, which is a negoim, which mean our problems and issues in life, which come as a result that our oineg and our oigen, our machshove, our das is stuck in the wrong places. So the question is how we fix it, how we make the difference. As the Rebbe said in the Sikha, "Ve'oid ve'ikra golus apnimi ba'avodas Hashem." What's the golus pnimi ba'avodas Hashem? It's referring to our das stuck in the wrong place. So I just want to share with you a personal story that happened not long ago. We have a big event in the Beit Chabad, and one of the people, not from this community, who was involved in organizing this mega event, did something wrong, which I called him to say this is wrong and you can't do it, and he got offended, and he was criticizing me, and it was a whole balagan. And I took it in a very, it was really overwhelming for me, the situation. And I did consult with other shluchim and rabbonim and mashpim, and all told me, you're doing the right thing. What you have done, it's wrong, and you should say no. But something was bothered. So I called my mashpia, and we discussed it. And my mashpia says, Dudu, you did absolutely the right thing, as the rabbonim and the mashpim told you that was right. But the fact that it was overwhelming experience for you, and it made you to be ois mensch for the whole day of that day, it was a very terrible day, that was wrong. And that nega indicate of something deeper that you need to work on in your avodas Hashem. And that was, he spoke about the idea of that we need to always ask ourselves the question, who we are working for. Are we working for ourselves, or are we working for the godliness? Is it about our own personal successful or failure, or it's about the godliness to be successful? And when the focus is on my successful and someone tell me that it's wrong or anything that could create this overwhelming and very not right emotion. But if in our world we remember that we're not serving ourselves, we're serving the God and the truth, then you could say the no in a cold way, in a good way, and it's not basically bothering you. So this nega, this problem that occur was, and we all experienced different negoim, different hard experiences or hard times in different areas. All these negoim, all these issues are indication from the Eibishter to us where we need to walk, where we need to dig in our oigen, in our das, in our awareness, and change something in the setting of our das, and the mele changing in the oineg, in our pleasure, and therefore also what in nogea to us. And again, when you learn about Moshiach and everything, because the Rebbe says now it's moved from the Nosi Adoy to the Anshe Adoy, and now the task is that we all should want Moshiach, not because the Rebbe, rather, we should want Moshiach because we want Moshiach, because this is our oineg. So therefore, that's required from us to through this negoim, through these difficulties that we experience in our life, to find to the right place. Maybe another story that maybe express it. We had a charity campaign few good years ago, and it started 4 p.m. here in Australia, and at 2 a.m. I have no one to call, but I can't go to sleep. You're only halfway through, and I'm calling one of the guys in charity in America, and to ask him for advice. What should I do? Who should I call now? So he told me something very powerful. He says, Dudu, if you're asking people for money, you will get advice. But if you ask them for advice, you will get money. I must say, for his favorite, that he actually not only gave me the advice, but also he gave a very nice donation, follow this advice. But what the idea behind it? When you come to someone and you ask for advice in a real sincere way, not just as a game, you get, it's become nogea to him, because he need to think about this. He get involved. And when it's nogea to him, so it's also oineg to him, and he also put his oigen into it. And that's the way he will do everything he could to make it happen. And that's what the Rebbe says, I did all what I can. The only thing I could do is to give it over to you. The Chiddush of Chavches Nisan, apparently, even before, all the time was about how to go out of Golus HaPnimi. So what's the Chiddush of Chavches Nisan? Why that's called the Sicha Yadua? We have Purim Mem Zayin, we have, it's all about, all the time. Maybe one of the Chidushim of Chavches Nisan is that for the first time, the Rebbe says, I did my part, and now the only thing I could do is to give over, to hand over to you the project. Do all what you can. But more than that, the Rebbe, I'm not knowing all the sichos, but as far as I know, maybe for the first time, the Rebbe says to all the Hasidim, you should metakes eitzer. You should take the advice. You should find the way how to do it. Mashgocha Brotis, without Leben mit der Zeit, today the Chumash here in Chutz La'aretz, Kdoishim, Dabel, Kol Adas Bnei Yisrael. So Rashi asks, usually it's a Dabel Bnei Yisrael. Why it says Kol Adas Bnei Yisrael? So Rashi says, was a Akel. Everybody came to hear these psukim of Pashas Kdoishim. And why? Sheroiv Gufei Toirot Luimbo. And therefore you need everybody to attend. So the Rebbe, the Sikh of Chavches Nisan, he didn't say it only to Menalei Aguch, to Menalei Amerkos. He said to the whole public, I give it, Ani Moser et Hanyan Aleichem, to everybody, because it's for everybody to take it into what is nogea. We all pieces of a puzzle, and each one, as the Rebbe says in Pinchas Nun Aleph, Machdo Eretz Yisrael. The Geula depends on each one of us to take the idea and the whole idea of Moshiach, the etzem and neshama and the godliness into where it's nogea to me, into my negoim, into where the indication of where it's I struggle, and in where I'm struggle to change the oigen, to change the way of thinking, to change the setting, and then we'll find a way out to fix what needs to be fixed. Okay, we'll say l'chaim together. To find a little bit l'chaim and livroche.
L'chaim to the l'chaim.
When the Rebbe says in the Sikha that all what we have done was le'evel ve'lorik, so I had a take about this, which is relevant to what we are speaking, that if after all these 40 years, we still rely on the Rebbe to do the job for us, so these all 40 years were le'evel ve'lorik. The Rebbe could have done it at Tovshin Yud Aleph. But the whole purpose of all Hasidus Chabad is, and everything basically, is to reveal, as the Rebbe said in Tovshin Yud Aleph, that the Chosid and the Rebbe and the Eibishter are all one. Because in each one of us there is the Etzem and Neshama. And therefore, the whole avodah is to come to the point when we do it ourselves, when it's our own pleasure. It's become mamish one thing with ourselves. And here there is one more point I want to mention. In Toilda is Nun Beis, the Rebbe says something that I never saw. Again, I don't know all the Hasidus, but as far as I saw, I never saw such an expression. The Rebbe said in Toilda is Nun Beis, Veyesh le'oisifu letaken. We need to add something and to fix something, meaning compared to all what been said before in Hasidus, or at least by the Rebbe. And that the Rebbe says that we all know that there is 5 names to the Neshama, Naran, Chai, Yechide, and we all know Kuntres Inyon Shachpeas Chassidus, that basically through learning Chassidus, which is the Yechide Shebetayro, that's activate our own Yechide. Here in Toldos and Days, the Rebbe says a Chidush. This all, even the Yechide is one of the 5 names of the Neshama. A name is already Chitzonius to the Zach himself. And there is a deeper level, which is the Etzem and Neshama, the essence of the soul itself. And what's the way to activate that Etzem and Neshama, which is the Moshiach that in each one of us? And here the Rebbe says the way to activate the Etzem and Neshama, that level that is mamish with the right awareness and oineg and tainug about the loikus, is by learning in Yonah Geula Moshiach. I heard from my neighbor here that he once went into a mental food of us home early morning, and he saw him learning Rambam, and he was kind of saying to the mental, Rambam before davening, and he said, "What are you talking about? The first thing I want to do in the morning is to be connected to the mitzvah of the Rebbe, to the takona of the Rebbe." So I'm not here to say anything. I just say maybe al derech zeh, now that the shlichus ha'ikri is vayechido is kabot nei Moshiach, and the Rebbe says that the way to become nei Moshiach is by learning and understanding the inyan of Moshiach and Geula b'ofen hamiskabel to each one according his seichel and his avona. So the first thing should be learning about Yonah Geula and Moshiach. There is great books. I'm sure everybody could know and find about this. And if I have 1 more minute just to share last thing for my shver, my father-in-law, Yaakov Friedman, is a professor in physics. And he, in one stage, early 80s, got offer from Bell Weiss to run a big company of high-tech. And he asked the Rebbe said, no, you should continue in your science research. And half a year later, the Rebbe sent Yirmiyahu Baranover. And to explain my shver, it was like a nice Evenishma. Why the Rebbe told him to stay in science? The Rebbe says 2 things. One, the Rebbe says, because if I tell you to move to high-tech, I tell you to delete 13 years of your life that you study all this physics and math. Second thing the Rebbe says, we all here to the shlichus to prepare the world to welcome Moshiach. There is many people in the world that the only language they could hear is science. You will be the shliach of Moshiach to explain the godliness in the science language. And same is to each one of us, to ourselves and to the people around us. and in Mitzvah Hashem, we should all find the way that will be nogea in our oineg, and for sure that will be to lead us all to Kabbalah's Moshiach, our Rebbe, and also our own personal Moshiach. L'chaim v'livrocha.